Japan anime news powered by Newtype Japan feels heavy this week, doesn't it? That's right, last week I wasn't in Japan. So this week, rather than sharing anime-related information announced in Japan while I was on vacation DJing privately in America, I'll be learning about it here too. Hello, I'm Hisanori Yoshida, an announcer from Nippon Broadcasting System. This podcast delivers anime information to the world, based on the latest anime news gathered by KADOKAWA's anime magazine Newtype editorial department. We broadcast Japanese anime trends and anime culture to the world. This program was recorded on March 16th, 2025. We are using the multilingual voice translation tool Lingueene for translation. Please note that languages other than Japanese are translated by AI and may contain inaccurate expressions. So, I landed about 12 hours ago. Actually, it was a bit earlier, more like 14 or 15 hours ago. Since then, I've been recording, organizing all the data I collected because I needed it for today's session, uploading files and things like that. I managed to get a little sleep. And now, here I am. Now, let's talk about the news that happened while I was away. First, we have the Japan Academy Awards. This is officially sanctioned by the Academy, and Nippon Broadcasting has long been involved with it through the All Night Nippon Topic Award. While the main awards are for live-action films, these days if you look at the top 10 highest-grossing films, most of them are animated. Even before this trend, there's always been a Best Animation Award category. By the way, the Academy Awards system doesn't use the term nominations. Instead, there are just Excellence Awards and the Grand Prize. And this year, the Best Animated Film Award went to Look Back. But you know, that film is quite short, isn't it? It's not even 70 minutes. Was it 58 minutes? I'm pretty sure it was something like that. The quality is absolutely magnificent. For film festivals, international film festivals, there's usually a minimum runtime requirement that it wouldn't meet. But I guess for the Academy Awards, it's fine, since they're not a film festival. The quality was just incredible for what it was. In fact, director Kiyotaka Oshiyama personally handled more than half of the cuts. And it was animated by only 8 master animators. How did they do that? I suppose it means there weren't many other people who could meet their quality standards. Word of mouth spread, and it became very popular. It recorded a huge box office success of 2.04 billion yen. So it was 58 minutes. After all, my memory wasn't wrong. I mean, 2 billion yen earned by just 8 people. Well, that's not impossible for an extremely efficient company, but it's certainly exceptional. I mean, it's not exactly company management, but anyway, I really think Look Back is a film that deserves all the acclaim. Yes. And the full list of voice acting award winners has been announced for the 19th annual awards. Yes, this time the leading voice actor awards went to Miho Okazaki and Toshihiko Seki. Miss Okazaki is probably for That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. What did Mr. Seki do in 2025? The Nintama movie? You know, once voice actors establish themselves as exceptional talents, they tend to stick around for a long time. Looking at his appearances from 2020, I'm scrolling, but still haven't reached 2025. He played Kitaro's father in Gegege no Kitaro. Well, I suppose that could be it. I don't really understand this new voice actor award thing. Yeah. Is it Hiro Ishibashi and Shotaro Uzawa? As for Hiroki Nanami, there's no question since they have a solid track record in Takarazuka. And then Rika Hayashi. I worked once with Asaki Yukawa on The Elusive Young Lord. And then there's the singing award, Brave Burn voiced by Kenichi Susumura. And it's a major issue for radio that there's no personality award. A&G is ending too. I guess since they've already given out all the awards, the anime radio culture itself has come full circle. We talked about this kind of stuff this week, but that's a separate topic, so I'll put that aside for now. But there were various other awards given out as well. By the way, Look Back also received a special award, so there you have it. And now moving on to something I still don't know about. A live-action CM looking back at the 20-year history of the Idolmeister series has been released. So the Idolmeister will reach its 20th anniversary on July 26, 2025. My goodness. They're planning a 2-year celebration for Idolmeister's 20th anniversary. So that means they'll celebrate across both the 19th and 20th years, spanning the actual anniversary. I see. There are numerous projects in development, and in this CM, Junichiro Takagi, the president of Namco Productions, is played by Yoshitada Otsuka, who also provides the narration. That makes sense for a CM. Mr. Yoshitada isn't actually showing his face, of course. Wait, he is showing his face? But in the anime and games, he's always just a silhouette. Oh, I guess he wouldn't appear. But Mr. Yoshitada is actually walking around in it. Wow, so they even included proper sidewebs in this, huh? They really did. My goodness. Well, it's not that surprising, but they even included the latest V project, V A Live Run. The silhouette approach is still there as usual, though. What? Well, I've been doing a podcast with Eriko Nakamura, the voice of Haruka Amami, for quite some years now. Even before we started the podcast, we decided to do it because we both love talking. But we ended up talking so excessively that we actually created a podcast where we limited ourselves to just 3 minutes per day. Well, it's been 20 years now. Time flies. I still remember when we first met at the Taito station in Akihabara. I was shocked. I thought, this is the end of my life. She was just too funny. 20 years, huh? Yes. That's right. It started with the arcade version. Then came the home console version. What was it for? Xbox, right? I remember it so clearly. And when it got an anime adaptation, it was about robots. Yeah, they decided to start with that part first. I wonder how much everyone pretends Xenoglossia never happened. And then there's Bandori. I've been saying this all season in various places. Abe Musica is just incredible. Apparently after episode 11 aired, the internet is in an uproar over its unprecedented direction. All while I was away at South by Southwest. In episode 11, Wika's secret was revealed, and for 20 minutes out of the 30-minute broadcast, it was essentially a one-person show where other characters only appeared in flashbacks. There was that one time when Shintaro Asanuma did something similar with the Tokiwazu mythological system where he genuinely performed alone. It's strange to ask what will happen next, but there was barely anything except the opening and ending. Oh, is that so? Just one person the whole time. Well, but with Abe Musica, I think I mentioned this before. According to Regsa data, not many people are actually watching it. It feels like everyone online is watching it, which is quite puzzling, and I'm watching it too. And a sequel to the Konosuba anime has been confirmed. Of course they're doing this, right? It has been officially decided that a sequel to Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World, will be produced, and this was announced, or rather revealed, in a post-credits scene following the main feature of the limited theatrical release, Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World, 3 bonus stage. And now, the Pierrot Magical Girl series. A new production after 28 years. What happened there? Studio Pierrot needs no introduction, of course. They're behind major works like Bleach, right? That's what people associate with Pierrot. Naruto too. Well, Pierrot has announced they're producing a new TV anime in their Magical Girl series called Magical Sisters Lulut and Lily, set to air in 2026. This marks the first new entry in the series in 28 years, since Magical Stage Fancy Lala in 1998. The first series was Magical Angel Creamy Mami, which aired from 1983 to 1984. This new production commemorates the 40th anniversary since the final episode. 40 years ago, huh? I actually watched Creamy Mami when it originally aired. I didn't think of it as just a girls' show and watched it normally. And it's had proper remakes since then too. I must have been around high school age at the time. When I was around high school age, we didn't have smartphones yet. I was standing in line at Komiket. When you're waiting in line at Komiket, otaku folks have nothing to do but wait. So usually people chat with their friends or the people in front of or behind them. I'll never forget. Back then, Komiket was held in Harumi. While being swept along with the crowd inside Japan's largest warehouse venue in Harumi, someone had this portable device that could play 8mm tapes and let you watch them right there. It looked like a Game Boy, but about 4 times bigger, and it ran on batteries. Someone was carrying it around, and I knew such things existed. But I was like, they really exist. And I clearly remember that they were watching the remake of Magical Angel. Wait, not Creamy Mami. It was Minky Momo. Yeah, with Megumi Hayashibara. Right, Minky Momo. That's it. Oh my, I made a mistake. And this was directed by Kunihiko Yuyama, the general director, right? Looking at it now, almost all the Pokemon movies were directed by Yuyama, though he hasn't been doing them recently. Interesting. Speaking of magical girls, there's another one. Actually, without this one, none of the others would have existed. I remember when Madoka Magica came out, everyone was like magical girls now. At that time, without Nanoha, it wouldn't have existed either. It definitely wouldn't have. It might be that genres that pioneered something aren't necessarily the ones that get continued. Precure has more presence now, doesn't it? But this was the original one. That's the point. And the official Crayon Shin-chan spin-off, The Way of Hiroshi Nohara's Lunch, will be animated in October. The official spin-off manga, The The Way of Hiroshi Nohara's Lunch has been confirmed for TV animation, scheduled to broadcast on BS Asahi starting in October. Isn't this way too influenced by The Solitary Gourmet? It obviously is. Well, I guess so. The director is Mr. Nishiyama from Human Bug University's Department of Mystery, Faculty of Misfortune, with series composition by Mr. Mori Hayashi, who is actually Satoshi Wagahara. Animation production will be handled by DLE, known for Secret Society Eagle Talon, so it's definitely going to take a comedic approach. Well, I suppose that's just how it is. So, this was news from mid-March, but next week, let's see, this podcast will be released on the 21st, right? It's released on the 21st, and then Anime Japan is happening on the 22nd and 23rd. There will probably be a lot of new information coming out there, so I'm thinking next week might be quite busy with various things. Wait, we're recording next week's podcast on Sunday the 23rd, so we should be fine, right? Yes, that works out. We should be able to share all kinds of information after the second day ends. That's good. That's good. All right. So, we've received some anime-related emails again this week. The timing of these emails seems a bit off, and I feel like I'm causing everyone trouble. Maybe I should read them in the order they were received. Yes, let's go in order. Here's an email received at 7:34 p.m. on March 9th. I listened to Anime Stellar. What's this about? This email is from radio name Yuzukuma Arashi, or Uchu Dekupon. Yes, I just finished listening to the Anime Stellar broadcast where Iwa-chan and Yopi were guest appearing. This is that anime radio show on NHK, and the reason I'm speaking in past tense is because Anime Stellar will have its final episode on the 23rd. They invited me to be on it. By the way, about this Yuzukuma Arashi-san, my anime radio beginnings were with Seishun Radimania, where I happened to discover Yopi's character show, Tokyo Character Show Radio, through static-filled airwaves. So this broadcast was quite nostalgic for me. In true Yopi fashion, while sharing thoughtful radio stories and delivering hilarious episodes one after another, he managed to slip in some solid Kinoko dog evangelism right at the very end. That's right. I wonder why I was even talking about Kinoko Dog on NHK in the first place. Thanks to this podcast, Kinoko Dog, which I was just personally recommending, has been rolling in interesting directions one after another, and it's been truly surprising. When I briefly mentioned this on social media, I got a little notice from the official Kinoko Dog account. They replied to me. If this podcast had been released a bit earlier, I probably would have sent Yopi a long, detailed review of Old Man and Old Woman Rejuvenation instead of Kinoko Dog. For me, Old Man and Old Woman was truly a perfect work with laughter, emotion, sexiness, and humor. That's right, it's from a little while ago. I received this email on March 9th. Next, on March 10th, hello Mr. Yoshida, this is Kape Ine. This is what we received from our regular contributor, Kape Ine. The timing of these scripts arriving to coincide with our regular recording dates is just like when our regular writers send in their manuscripts when we fail to communicate properly. Sorry about that. Last time I mentioned that Frieren Beyond Journey's End would start streaming on Netflix in America, but it seems The Apothecary Diaries will also begin streaming on American Netflix from spring. Since this series was previously only available on Crunchyroll, I think it might become even more popular now. These two series appear quite frequently in recommended reaction videos on YouTube, so they're definitely works that overseas YouTubers are paying attention to. Reaction videos are really trending right now. People film themselves watching something, and then everyone watches their reactions like when they go, whoa. Both of these seem like more laid-back shows, don't they? They're not really the kind that make you go, wow, you know? I mean, they do have action scenes. Frieren has quite a few, actually, but they're that type of show. I see it's different from what we're used to. Maybe that's why we're a bit impressed by the anime's style of expression. By the way, regarding the Okinawan girl I fell for speaks too much dialect, it hurts? Yes, Okitsura indeed. We're up to episode 10 now, but the dubbed version still hasn't appeared on Crunchyroll, so it looks like we'll only get the subtitled version. Ah, well. Translating Okinawan dialect must be difficult. I hope the production team doesn't worry about such things and just keeps charging ahead with their unique approach. Yeah, that makes sense. P.S. Have a safe trip to America. Looking forward to hearing about South by Southwest. I went there. What was interesting about my visit is that South by Southwest is not an anime event just because I went overseas. It's completely different. It's this mysterious event in Austin, right in the middle of Texas, where they simultaneously hold 3 different events under the same banner: music, film, and what they call interactive, which includes various new technologies. And there in Austin, there's this band called P-Lander Z. That's P-Lander Z, which is color-coded based on Japanese Sentai shows. So they're like a Sentai team that formed a band. The person who runs this is Yellow-san, who is a member himself, and he's actually Japanese. This Yellow-san originally went to New York to become a painter, but when he was feeling a bit down, he thought he'd start a band as a hobby. After moving to America and starting the band, that became more interesting to him. He ended up signing with a record label as a band, and since that label is in Austin, he moved there. As things progressed, the band became busier than his painting career. Now that he's become somewhat well-known and established relationships through his band, people have ironically started commissioning his artwork. So these days, he does both painting and music. Speaking of which, and this isn't really related to anime either, do you know Chiaki Mayumura? There's this absolutely wild singer-songwriter in Japan who absolutely doesn't fit into any conventional Japanese category. Last year, Chiaki decided to go to South by Southwest, which is perfect for her. You know, that kind of, how should I put it? Those fearless, reckless-feeling Japanese girl bands are incredibly well-received at South by Southwest. Last year, when Chiaki Mayumura was going to South by Southwest, I've known Mayumura-san for a while, so I told her, if you're going, you absolutely have to meet this person called Yellow. Then these two hit it off like crazy. Makes sense, right? They're the kind of people who don't fit neatly into Japanese categories. So I thought, this is interesting. When they did their triumphant return show last year, they said, it's all thanks to Yapi-san, and invited me. At the show, they suddenly brought me up on stage and told me to say something. I was like, what's really amazing about this is that Japan's otaku culture is incredible, more than anything else. We should be exporting otaku culture itself overseas. That's why you guys are going there. And somehow by the end, I was crowd surfing while Mayumura-san was singing at this event in Shimokitazawa. Having said all that, wouldn't it be weird if I didn't go myself? So I took some vacation days and went to South by Southwest this time. Going there, in terms of anime-like things, first of all, the penetration of anime merchandise throughout the city is truly remarkable. There was this older guy wearing a Demon Slayer t-shirt at South by Southwest, just glaring at everyone around him. And at the Los Angeles airport, there was this young man, probably in his 20s, clutching a Naruto figure under his arm. When I was returning from Los Angeles, I was using a slowpoke neck pillow, and next to me was an Indian person carrying a Snorlax bag. I noticed that you're more likely to see Japanese anime merchandise on the streets than Disney goods among regular people. I found that quite surprising. Also, I went to all of Chiaki Mayumura's concerts that I could attend. I went to every single one I could, and there were already dedicated Chiaki fans there. One of them was this American guy who kept wearing a green hat, sighing "Pooh!" and saying "I am Luigi" the whole time. Things like that were happening there. I was invited by Yellow-san to join, and the SXSW event itself, of course, has an official program with dozens of official venues where invited artists perform. Mayumi's Chucky was one of them. But since so many people gathered, and because it's a music city, there are lots of venues hosting official shows, plus many places doing unofficial performances. And since it's in the South, there's plenty of space, you know, like courtyards at beer factories and such places. Normally, these might be spots where people eat ice cream, but they transform them into performance spaces saying, hey, we could do shows here too. There were tons of these happening. So when Yellow-san, said he was doing a live show, an event, he was like, Yoppie, wouldn't it be fun? You should join. So I told him I'd DJ. That was the premise for why I came this time. I was talking about various things I wanted to try experimentally, like playing Ultra Relax because it has lyrics about Texas, to get that American feeling, which I actually did play. When I played it, I found out that Americans really dance to DA Pump's USA that I absolutely wanted to play in America. They dance in such a hilarious way. Basically, the people who come to see us are those who have some interest in Japanese culture. Among them, there's always one or two people who get it, and once they do, everyone else follows along. That's how it works. I thought Americans really know how to get into the groove. What I found interesting was when I played Uma Musume. When I played it, I gradually explained that this was a song about horses. When I said something like, Japanese horse racing girls anime, they were like, okay. And everyone started spinning around in a circle mosh. I see, that's the kind of thing we were doing. So, of course, Japanese otaku were mixed in there. Japanese otaku are undoubtedly at the cutting edge when it comes to enjoying themselves, that's for sure. We also played Hamtaro, Hamtaro also started a mosh pit. The reason it happened was because there were some people who actually knew it. Even now, Japanese music still has the power to surprise people overseas. Don't you feel like about one Japanese artist succeeds internationally every year these days? By the way, I was told the most impressive one right now is Otoboki Beaver, who I think were a band from Ritsumeikan University in Kyoto. There are groups like that who are like, we're a girls band, and so on. I really think the way Japanese otaku get excited in the audience is incredible. And since this hasn't become an international standard yet, it's worth experiencing. My biggest problem was that the batteries in the light sticks I brought had leaked. So they were completely unusable. They don't sell those gold pen lights over there. The fact that they don't sell gold pen lights is probably an opportunity. Yeah. Gold pen lights, that's probably the next big chance. So, I'm sorry. I just received line stickers from a Jodo sect Buddhist priest on my phone. It's unrelated, but sorry about that. I'll look at it later. So that about sums up South by Southwest. So, this is from Kapi-ine, sent on March 16th at 1 p.m. This is the email I received after returning to Japan. It says, I always listen to the podcast, but the last episode was released on a Sunday in America instead of the usual Friday. Unfortunately, the post came after the recording. But thinking about it, there's no need to wait for the release, so I plan to send my messages whenever I feel like it from now on. I apologize for the business-like tone. By the way, I haven't been announcing it on my social media every time. I tend to forget. Wait, what time is it again on Fridays? Oh, right, it's at 5 p.m. Shouldn't I create an account to automatically post updates? Please look into that for me. If I get replies, I'll definitely retweet them. So, by the way, last time we talked about isekai anime, and yes, there are indeed many shows with similar trends. Personally, I like Saga of Tanya the Evil, but even though it's set in a Europe-like world, it's not medieval. I wonder if it still counts as isekai. Well, Saga of Tanya the Evil is certainly a reincarnation story, but there's no rule that says an isekai has to be set in medieval Europe. I guess it's fine. It's not exactly typical of how we categorize isekai, is it? Not typical, but interesting nonetheless. And then, sometimes I see reactions from overseas or comments in English that make me go, interesting. Like how Japan seems to love settings such as The Apothecary Diaries or Raven of the Inner Palace with their Chinese-inspired worlds, or how Japanese people tend to romanticize or idealize Chinese-inspired settings from those periods. I think they mean we find romance in it. Or beautify it. Now that they mention it, that might be true. And I find it an interesting perspective. What do you think, Yoshida-san? There are definitely certain historical periods that people prefer, right? It's like how modern Japanese people tend to create an excessive amount of content about the Bakumatsu period in Japanese history, to the point where you might think, do we really need another Bakumatsu story? So when something like The Elusive Samurai came out, everyone was like, oh, you're doing that period? I mean, it's fine, but it's not bad, just unexpected. Nobody really thinks about doing stories set from the end of the Kamakura period to the establishment of the Muromachi shogunate. Then there's the Sengoku period. It's always either Sengoku or Bakumatsu, and these periods need no explanation. Just, it's Sengoku period. Ah, yes, understood. I once heard that there might be around 200 voice actors who have played Oda Nobunaga at some point. That's how prevalent these stories are. As for China, I think the success of The Apothecary Diaries has contributed, but Japanese people have always been quite fond of Chinese historical settings. But when works like Kingdom about the spring and autumn and Warring States periods came out, everyone thought, they're covering that period? And then found it interesting. I love the Three Kingdoms period, and there are various anime adaptations of it here and there. Speaking of Three Kingdoms, while Mitsuteru Yokoyama's manga version is significant, the games have had a huge impact. There was this game called Koei's Romance of the Three Kingdoms. But there are definitely certain historical periods that are particularly popular. Some eras just don't get much attention, like the Heian period, which rarely gets adapted into anime. Even the NHK historical dramas hardly cover it, right? Because nothing much happens. How magnificently Japanese, right? It never became an anime. It's a novel by Seiko Himuro. It was also made into a manga. Despite being a massive hit, nowadays I'd expect someone to adapt it, but no one has. It hasn't been made into an anime yet. Actually, talking about this now, I'm starting to think, maybe there's an opportunity there as a challenge. How magnificently Japanese after all this time. But I wonder what you'd call that. It was based on the girls' culture of that time. So it's different now. There were so many World Bunko books back then, weren't there? Dr. Stone is set in the Stone Age. They basically start from the Stone Age and rapidly progress to making smartphones. They even build spaceships. I think history becomes something that otaku, or rather middle-aged guys, start digging into as they get older. From an older guy's perspective, you see something new and think, oh, another Warring States period story? But then when something completely different comes along, you get excited. Like when I see The Elusive Samurai, I think, oh, I don't know this one. Looks interesting. When it comes to China, we really can't tell the differences, can we? In Japan, we can definitely feel the distinctions between the Edo period and the Heian period. We can imagine that they were different cultures. But for us, the Ming Dynasty and the Song Dynasty are so close together that it's hard to distinguish between them. Of course, the Qing Dynasty is a different country and a different ethnicity, so there is that. But when it comes to the unification under Genghis Khan, it's really hard to grasp, isn't it? That's true. On the flip side, it can actually become interesting in manga, like when you start reading The Tent of Jadurga. Yes, that's right. So while there are various periods that we like, it might be a hit if we can uncover those eras that everyone actually loves but didn't know about. As for period dramas, I think they tend to focus on the Edo period because it's easier to create stories from that time, given that there are more historical records available. But even live-action adaptations can change things up, right? Like how they made Hiroyuki Sanada a shogun, and it was well received worldwide. I believe there are still plenty of untapped stories around the world waiting to be discovered. And that's all for this week's Japan Anime News. When posting on social media, please use the hashtag JAnime. If you have any feedback about the program or anime news you'd like me to cover, please send an email. The email address is janime242.com. Next week, I'll bring you the latest anime news right after Anime Japan. This has been Hisanori Yoshida, Nippon Broadcasting System announcer.